On the phone with us right now, we've got former U.S. Senator Jim DeMint from the state of South Carolina. He is also the founding chairman of the Palmetto Promise Institute. And, Senator, appreciate you being on with us today. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me, Dave. Why do you need to go on vacation when you live right there in Myrtle Beach?
Well, people ask, well, you're from the upstate. You know what it's like. I mean, you whenever you came to the on vacation, you probably came to the beach, right?
I sure did, yeah. So why would you go anywhere else?
Well, people always ask that. It's like, well, you live in Myrtle Beach. Where do you go for vacation? It's like, I don't know, anywhere but Myrtle Beach, I guess. But we got you here. And, well, first of all, before we get to some of the things that you're dealing with right now with the Palmetto Promise Institute, and by the way, if you want to go online, it's palmettopromise.org was the website. Very good, informative website. Do you miss, with the climate of the politics as it is right now, do you miss being in Washington, D.C. at this point in time?
Well, I actually split my time between South Carolina and Washington, so I still fly up there. I've got a new group called the Conservative Partnership Institute, and we try to help conservatives on the inside of the House and the Senate and the administration. But, no, I'm glad I don't have to wait around for somebody to tell me when I have to vote. And there's not a whole lot going on in Washington except for some deregulation and stuff that's helping the economy. But we've got a real chance to change things in South Carolina, and the most important thing is education. Dave, we spend about more than 25 other states, and we're at the very bottom, and that just means our kids don't have as much opportunity as other states. But this year we've got a lot of courageous legislators in our House and our Senate who are pushing education reform and particularly education scholarship accounts that let the money follow the students. And what we've seen in other states where this is done, it just creates so many more education opportunities when parents can shop for what their kids need, whether they're exceptionally bright, whether they're a little bit slow, whether they're disadvantaged or disabled. All kids are different. And this is just an opportunity. The reason I'm calling around the state to great shows like yours is we need to let the people in Columbia that are representing us know that we support taking action this year on education scholarship accounts.
Senator, good morning. This is Reese Boyd. I wonder if you might just, in a few sentences, explain to the listeners how these educational scholarship accounts would work.
Well, what they do is it's the same money that we already have, but what it does is it allows parents at their option to take the public school money and maybe they go to a particular school for a special needs school, or maybe their church has they've created a small school, or maybe there's a private school, or maybe they just decide to go to the public school down the street. But what it does is it just allows parents to put together the education opportunities that work for their child. And I know I had 4 children, and they all needed something different. They weren't even all going to the same school because they had different needs. But what we've seen in other states that do this, I mean, and you'll hear from the National Teachers Union, oh, this is taking money from public schools, it's going to hurt public education. It's just not true. We've got all the research. As public schools get better when states get serious about more education choice. Now, education, we have some choices in South Carolina. We've got a good homeschool law. We've got a growing charter school movement, and that's helpful. But the very top of the line of good education opportunity is education savings accounts. And Reese, I'll just tell you, Arizona started this a while back. And all the states start slow. It doesn't apply to every student right away. We'll start in kindergarten and work our way up, and over time, more and more kids will be able to do it. But if parents don't spend all the money that is given to their child in a given year, it just rolls over. And in Arizona now, we've got kids going to college on rolled over education scholarship money that wasn't spent. And what happens is you get parents who become very astute shoppers, and then you've got more and more education services that come in and try to compete for those dollars. And with virtual education, things online, things that schools can do to bring in the best courses from around the country, what you see is a lot of innovation and creativity and a lot better student performance.
So this is really about giving choice to parents, because one of the conservative concerns, or one of the concerns that I've heard from conservatives about this legislation, Senator, is that there's not a lot of public choice, or excuse me, there's not a lot of school choice language or school choice provisions in there. But really, what this sounds like, it really is choice. It's just phrased in the form of economics through the money that's spent on the children.
Yeah, and it's not for anybody in government to decide what those choices are. What it allows is just the money we're already spending on students to follow the student to wherever that parent puts them. And it creates some options like this rollover. So it's, a tax credit is essentially something you spend, you get some credit for that, but it doesn't create the incentives for shopping and all the resources that we could have brought to education. If you think of Allendale, South Carolina, right now you're not going to get a lot of education resources moving in there that don't come through the government schools because the students don't have any money to spend. But if you create a consumer market for education, what you're going to see is not only new schools come in and develop, just small schools, neighborhood schools, because every child is walking around with $10,000 or $12,000 in their pocket each year, and you can provide a lot of good education for that amount of money if you give parents the ability to make those decisions. And again, what it creates a lot of opportunities for teachers, because teachers can do a lot of different things to fulfill the needs of the parents. They can do tutoring. They can hold small classes at again, whether it be at churches or other school buildings. We've just seen in other states it just creates a vibrant market for education services and much better student performance.
We're talking with Jim DeMint this morning on Hot Talk 99.5 with the Palmetto Promise Institute. You can go to palmettopromise.org to find out more. Now, Senator, obviously, South Carolina is in the middle of the education debate right now. The House could vote on it as early as this afternoon after debating it all day yesterday. It'll go to the Senate after that. Is it too late to try to get any of your initiatives in for this year, or can you still sneak anything under the wire? And what can people do at this point in time if they want to harass their local lawmakers?
No, don't harass them, support them. Right, this is going to happen in two waves. We think that the Speaker has an education bill right now that does some things that we need to do. It catches up on some teacher pay. It reduces paperwork. I mean, we're having trouble keeping teachers and recruiting them because we're way behind other states around us in what we pay, and we've put too much paperwork on them. So the Speaker's bill doesn't have the choice options. Recess may be what you've heard. But both the majority leader, Shane Massey, in the Senate, and we've also seen the Speaker commit to following this with education scholarship accounts bill, because we've got almost half of the House members have co-sponsored the bill, a lot of support in the Senate. And so we're just trying to make this whole session in Columbia about creating a better education opportunity for our students.
That's so the bill that has, and I want to say it's now in the Senate. It's H3759, and then there's a companion bill in the Senate, which I think is S419, Senator. So you're telling me that S419, which I think is in the Education Committee now, it does not contain these education savings account provisions.
No, they may debate it as part of this in the Senate, but you're right. The House has passed in a large bipartisan majority. It was 113-4. So that means both parties were serious. It'll get a little more contentious when you start talking about giving parents choices, because that's when the national teachers unions will get involved and stir up some they always say you're going to hurt public schools. But the research is so clear that it doesn't. And what we need right now, and you've mentioned, Dave, the website, palmettopromise.org, if they go to get involved and then they push education scholarship accounts, they can sign a petition that goes to the legislators that let them know they support the idea of more education choice in South Carolina. And that'll go a long way to let these folks know that their constituents are supporting what they're doing.
As far as choice is concerned, just as a broader subject and a broader question, Senator, people hear the term school choice all the time, but they don't understand all the ramifications or exactly what you're pushing for. I mean, as you alluded to at the very beginning of this, could you just explain to people out there what that means as far as their children are concerned? Would they be able to choose what school to go to, or how does that work, and what are you trying to advocate?
Well, right now, you generally get a public school that's assigned to wherever you live.
Right.
And people with means can move around and move in an area where they've got the best school they can find. That leaves a lot of folks at lower income out of that kind of equation. When we've got charter schools, that's a public school choice. It's a growing movement in South Carolina. And you generally see long lines of people who stand to get in that lottery to hopefully get selected. Charter schools tend to specialize in different types of things, and that's a good move too. But the next step is education scholarship accounts. It's totally flexible, and parents can take the money that's allotted to them. And again, we spend about $15,000 a year. And in education savings accounts, that amount will probably be 10 to 12. I'm not exactly sure what they'll settle on, that can follow the student. And they can go, again, to a private school. They can go to a Christian school. They can go to a neighborhood school where they get the students in that neighborhood with one or two tutors. They can they basically start their own school in a neighborhood. If they have special needs, they generally get a larger allocation. And we have states like Arizona who have, like, they might have $20,000 for special needs. You have people with blind children who move from another part of the country to that state, so their child can get the specialized services they need instead of having to provide that service within a public school that becomes terribly expensive and it doesn't generally work well for the students. So it's just giving parents the same choices in education that they have in most other areas of their life, where they want, what kind of clothes they want to buy, those kind of things. It's just silly with all the money we're spending on education that we're not giving parents more choices than we are today.
Well, and you mentioned a couple of very interesting points, Senator. The folks who oppose school choice made a lot of the same arguments about the charter school movement when it sort of rose up, and the harm that was predicted that would come to public schools. I really haven't seen any indication that any of that ever really materialized, but we have all the benefits that you mentioned that the charter school movement has brought, the choices, the specialized schools that have emerged, the virtual schools, and all the things that are so commonplace now that options that we didn't have before. That we have as a thank you and to the charter school movement, and so choice is a good thing, and competition is a good thing, and so it sounds like this is something that parent options, another option that parents need to have.
Reese, you're exactly right. 20 years ago, Florida was actually behind South Carolina in public schools. They implemented the broadest school choice program over those 20 years of any other states. And now their public schools are much better than ours, but they also have education scholarship accounts. They have a big charter school movement. They have various types of tax credits, and the public schools have gotten better. And you mentioned the word competition. It's not only competition for students, it's competition for the teachers. It creates a professional class of teachers that have a wide variety of options of what they want to do. They can teach in traditional schools. They can go to private schools. They can do all kinds of tutoring programs. And so teachers who are being told this is going to hurt their profession need to look at where they are today and realize that they're being treated as bureaucrats when, in fact, they're one of the most valuable commodities in our society today, and they should be treated that way. And education scholarship accounts create that vibrant market where professional teachers have a whole lot of different options in what they do.
Senator, before we let you go, and we got to run here in just a second, are we ever going to see your name on a ballot again anytime?
I don't think so. I've found I can get a lot more done under the radar. I'm actually I can get congressmen, senators, and people in the administration together at our place at the Conservative Partnership Center and actually get people on the same page. And so I feel like I can make a lot more progress. So I don't think I'll be running for office again, but you may see me trying to get some good people to run.
Well, don't lose our phone number. Stay in touch and let us know what is up. We appreciate your time today.
All right. Thank you both.